Hello, everybody. Stephanie Haney here with a quick update for you today in the criminal case proceeding against Cleveland and Columbus business owner Bobby George, who is accused of attempted murder, rape, kidnapping, and strangulation. I want to talk about his prosecution today. So, this case is being handled in the Cuyahoga County Criminal Court, and the Cuyahoga County prosecutor is Michael O'Malley. We have learned that the George family has donated $36,000 to Michael O'Malley's campaign. So why does that matter? Well, it's Michael O'Malley's office that is prosecuting this case against Bobby George. So we've learned that Tony George, who is Bobby George's father, has donated $36,000. $10,000 of that was in 2023. Another $10,000 was recently in 2024. And Michael O'Malley is up for re-election this year. So there have been some questions about whether he should recuse himself if there's a potential conflict of interest here. More on that in just a moment, but I do want to mention something that already happened that people have called into question. When Bobby George made his initial appearance in the Cleveland Municipal Court before the case was transferred to the Cuyahoga County Criminal Court, the prosecutor in that case asked for a $100,000 bond. That was so low that the judge in the case said, "I'm not accepting that as a bond level. We'll make it $200,000, which effectively meant that Bobby George had to pay $20,000 because you have to put up 10% of the bond in order to get out of custody while awaiting indictment and arraignment in the Cuyahoga County court system." So that's already been called into question. Both of those numbers, by the way, for the George family, relatively low numbers to post up that bond. Now back to Tony George. A little bit about Tony George. Some people have already mentioned that Tony George has been named in documents related to the First Energy House Bill 6 bribery scandal. The George family is a very powerful family. It is known that Tony George acted as a go-between between the former First Energy CEOs Mike Dowling and Chuck Jones. Those people are now facing state charges here in the state of Ohio, a go-between them and former Ohio House Speaker Larry Householder, who is serving a 20-year federal prison sentence and also faces state charges here in the state of Ohio. So that's a little bit about who Tony George is, just a little more background about the George family. And again, Tony George is the person who donated $36,000 to Michael O'Malley's office. So some people are saying, some experts analyzing this are saying that he should recuse himself and that a special prosecutor should be inserted. Now, I do want to tell you, I have been hearing some things about who has been suggested as a special prosecutor. And depending on if that happens and who that person is, there may be more questions there. So I'll keep you updated as I'm able to confirm things and let you know about things for certain. But for now, I just want to say that if a special prosecutor does end up being appointed in the Bobby George case, we can't necessarily just take that for the fact that that's a good thing that might relieve a conflict of interest, because you always have to look at the motivation behind these things that are happening. So I'll leave that there for now. And as a reminder, I will remind people now, and again, I'm going to talk about the horrific allegations against Bobby George. So if that's something that you do not want to hear about, this is the time for you to just leave this video. But Bobby George is accused of attempted murder, rape, strangulation, and kidnapping. He is said to have done these things to a person he was in a 2-year relationship with that he lived with for 1 year. This person is said to have tried to escape the situation multiple times, but there were guns involved. When she did try to escape, the arrest warrant detailed a gun being put to her stomach. We later learned in a police report that at that time, Bobby George is accused of telling her that the gun was loaded. The arrest warrant and the police report together told us that she was grabbed by the hair and had her head banged on a table in the living room to the point that her vision was blurred, her ears were bleeding and ringing, and she had to be hospitalized. The arrest warrant mentioned that she was treated initially by a nurse employed by Bobby George because he does have a wellness facility as part of the group that he's involved with. And I should also mention now that Bobby George's ownership interest in these businesses, in Town Hall, in Rebull, in the Live Wellness space, in the other elements that he has interests in, it's through a group called the Ethos Hospitality Group. So that's another thing that we'll be watching to see what happens there as this case develops with those particular interests. So That's what I have for you today related to the Bobby George case. And again, I will keep you updated as I learn more information.